When he reached out in October, and we started having this conversation, I said, what are the challenges that you guys are facing today? What can I help with? Because I could talk about anything, but it doesn't matter unless it's gonna help you. So we kind of landed on this, and I talked about why experiences really are so important, and seeing how you can see obstacles as opportunities and start to be a problem solver. So those are some of the topics that I want to touch on, but I also wanted to read, I did a takeover on the Gannon Instagram page last week, and some people typed in, like, I asked, what's your fears or your goals? And some of the responses were people, I'm afraid that the people around me that have negative mindsets are going to impact me, that I'm not going to be able to live my dream. I fear that I'll upset my roommate if I approach him about my concerns about his health. I fear that I'm not going to make friends, and I fear that I'm behind compared to others in my situation. I think, if you're thinking there's something that is going on in your head that doesn't happen to other people, it absolutely does. It's a universal concern. These concerns are universal. And even if one of these aren't your concern, I'm sure you have something. We all have things. So I'm hopefully going to give you some tools today to help address that. And I just want to share that, don't be afraid to be open-minded. Not necessarily just in what I'm saying, but also just in general. You can always take in new ideas and information and sort through it and make it your own. And I love this quote. I saw it on, probably Instagram somewhere. And it was like, don't be open-minded. Your brain's not going to fall out. Like, nothing's going to happen if you take in more information. And today I wanted to talk about, you might not know what you want to do. There's literally thousands of different things you can do. But once you get into the world after your education, it's really interesting because you learn, you're like, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to go to bed, I'm going to do the same thing every day, over and over and over. It's very different when you're in school. Like, I was reflecting on this. You have all these different classes, you get to experience different things, you get to meet different people, and there is a difference there. And so it's important to know what you like when you're out doing the same thing every day over and over and over for years, because you can't fake passion, you guys. You can't fake it, and it's really hard to keep showing up if you don't feel excited about it day after day. So I can't tell you what it is that you're going to do, or what your interests are, or what you're interested in. Your teachers can't tell you, your parents can't tell you. You're the only one that can figure it out. And I'm not saying that to scare you, but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it is up to you. But I'm going to give you tools to get through this. And I'm really excited about some of these topics that I've talked about with some of your professors. I saw this was another cool quote. It was, how you have the tags on the inside of your clothes, and it says, like, this is how you handle it or whatever. I want to read this one because it's really good. It's about life. And it says, usually limited to one person, subject to change without notice or reason. It's non-transferable, though it is a wonderful thing to dedicate parts of yours to others. It comes with one guarantee: it won't last forever. May incur damages arising from misuse. Batteries included, but require daily recharging. There's no instruction manual, no return policy. For best results, fill with people that make you happy. How cool is that? That's powerful, right? And then there's little things on the bottom that I thought were funny. They say, wash daily, iron out problems, expose to sunlight, keep out of fire, don't throw away. That was the bottom part there. But I love how well-rounded that describes life, right? We're here one time. And this, I'm sure most of you guys know who this is, Kobe Bryant, who just passed away with 8 other people earlier this week. This has really affected me, and my best friend who's here, Julie, and I were talking about this. And I think that this is having such an impact on the world because of the fierceness in which he lived and the impact that he made to others, and how much he wanted to go after his dreams and also help people achieve theirs. I mean, this was, I think, an incredible person. And I want to talk about, before we dive into mindset, the presentation I had prepared, I added this as an addition because I think these are really important lessons that we can learn from his life and the way that he lived. First, curiosity, right? He started this with everything. He was curious about basketball, and then he was curious about getting better. And then he was curious after his career about his girls and how he could help them. And then he was curious about how he could help women's sports and Special Olympics. Like, he did all these amazing things. It wasn't just one thing and he stuck with that forever. He was constantly learning. He was committed to lifelong learning. I know I'm committed to lifelong learning, and I hope you guys are too. And if not, maybe this can convince you. Consistency. I heard him in an interview that he talked about, the way that I got so good was I picked one thing, and then I just worked on that and worked on it every day, until I was really great at it. And then once I got that, then I picked another thing. And then I did that again. I worked on that thing, right? And then I consistently worked on it. And then he kept adding skills, right? That consistency leads to excellence. So if you keep putting the time and effort into things, you can get to a level of excellence. And that's what he brought out, not just in basketball, again, in every single thing he did. There's a saying I know a lot of people like is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I think that's powerful. It's like, how are you going to show up? How are you going to present yourself to others? How do you want to be known? The next thing was forward thinking. He was never dwelling in the past. I mean, when you hear him in interviews, even if people try to ask him about his old accomplishments, he wasn't like, oh yeah, like living in the glory days. It was about what he was doing in the future. It was about what was next, what he could do, what was possible. And I think that's just such an important mindset for us to think about. I think learning from the past is huge. You've got to do that, right? We've got to take the lessons and say, okay, if I messed up, made a mistake, how did I learn from this? And then how can I move forward? But truly, what can I do to create this or something better in myself in the future? And then relationships. I think everyone has seen, his family meant so much to him. And not only that, but the contact list and the number of people that he would stay in touch with and reach out to and talk to on a consistent basis. It was never ending for him. And I think this is really important, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth later. So today's primary topics I want to cover with you. Reframing failure. Instead of failure, what can you learn from an experience? And having more experiences. Problem solving. I'm going to talk about how to see obstacles as opportunities, and really, I have a very short, how to problem solve. And then we're going to talk about your superpower. We're going to figure out what that is. We're going to talk about networking. This word, it's overused. I'm not really a huge fan of it, but I think it's relatable, right? Everyone knows what it means, but I'm going to talk to you really about what it means and how to build a really great network. And then the last thing is gratitude. Because without gratitude, for some of you might call it prayer, without that, we have nothing, right? I mean, then what are we doing, what we're doing for the people that we have? Why are they important? And so having this practice as a daily part of your life is so, so important. So let's start out with reframing failure, right? How many times have you messed up and then, time passes and you're laying in bed at night and you're awake and you're like, man, did this really weird thing earlier today or 3 years ago, and it just comes in your mind, and then you focus on this, or you beat yourself up for how you showed up in a certain situation, right? Who has not had this experience? Instead of focusing on the fact that you failed, let's focus on what you could learn from this situation. And I would argue, I don't even see it as failure anymore. It's just learning. It's just trying and experiencing. Anyone who's ever done anything great, Steve Jobs, great example. Do you guys know how many times he's failed in order to create a lot of the things that he's done? Nike and innovation, same thing. The way that these organizations are set up allow people to fail because you never know what's going to make what's gonna make it, right? Until you try. And everyone starts as a beginner. Every great athlete, every great person in history that we remember and talk about now, everyone starts as a beginner. So don't worry about what could happen, what might happen. Just go out and try. And I love this. This is another great meme quote I found. When a child learns to walk and falls down 50 times, never thinks to himself, maybe this isn't for me, right? Have you ever seen a kid like just be like, I'm out, I'm crawling for the rest of my life, like I don't want to do it? No, like we all figure it out, right? And then we learn how to run and we learn how to do things. And I love like that child mentality of like, I'm just gonna keep trying, like, oh, scrape my knee, everything's fine. That mentality we kind of lose when we're adults, and I hate that, you know? How can we bring that in to adulthood so that we can continue to be better? And with that mentality, have as many experiences as possible, you guys. I cannot stress this. Like, if there's one thing you take away from today, it is this. Literally, I want you to go out there and experience as many things as you can, because you're not going to know what you like. You're not going to know what you want to do and what you want to show up to every day until you have enough experiences to be like, okay, well, I definitely hate these 100 things over here, and you know, there's some other things over here I'm more excited about, so I'm going to keep chasing those. But you're not going to know that until you have experiences. How many of you guys have had an internship or a co-op or something like that? Anyone? Couple people? Handful? Every single person in this room, this is my challenge to you. I don't care if you are a freshman, I don't care if you're a senior. Every single person needs to go out and shadow 2 people this semester. Like working professionals, anyone that you're interested in. Please go shadow them. If you don't have an internship, freaking get an internship, you guys. I don't even care if it's not paid. I know that's not the best, but the experience will give you so much more than anything you're going to learn in a classroom or a major. And it will maybe help you figure out what major to be in if you're not sure. But you're not just picking a major because it sounds good or because you're gonna have a certification or a degree isn't the reason to get a major. It's because you're interested in it, because you're curious about it, you're passionate enough to keep digging into it. I love this. So this is a little girl dancing in the rain. Has anyone ever tried to like go out in the rain on a run? Has anyone ever tried that? Yeah. It's horrible. It's like the worst thing when it's already raining and you're like, I have to go on a run right now, and there's no treadmill, and you're like, okay, the mental fortitude you have to get out there and do this is like, it feels unbelievable, right? But you do it anyway. So you're like, okay, then you're out there and you're like, oh, I'm fine. God, why was I making such a big deal of this? But you do it. So get comfortable being uncomfortable. There's so when I moved to Denver, I think a couple years after I graduated from here, and I didn't really know anyone there. I kind of knew 2 people, but I didn't really have any friends, and there were all of these events. Like, Denver's a really cool city. There's all these events going on, and I was like, okay, I want to go to them. I don't know anyone. I'm just gonna go. And that might be weird, because I might be alone and I might have to approach someone and be like, hi, I'm Lo. It's so great to meet you. And they're like, oh, what are you doing here? Who are you with? I'm like, I'm by myself. And then most people are like, oh my God, come and sit with us, or come to the, you know, and then you make new friends. And it was like, okay, I have to like keep putting myself in these situations, but the more I did it, the more comfortable I got doing it. So it just didn't become a thing anymore. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to this. And someone would be like, wait, you're going alone? And I was like, well, yeah, like this is a really cool event, so I'm not gonna miss it. So get comfortable being uncomfortable. And one thing I did at that time that really helped me was I just said, okay, this is gonna be uncomfortable right now. That's okay. And once I knew it was gonna be uncomfortable before doing it, it actually made it easier to do, because I was like, well, I already know it's gonna be uncomfortable, so let's just do it. And it was easier than running in the rain or jumping in a pool at 5 or 6 in the morning, which is the worst thing I've ever done, and I did it for like 15 years. I don't know why. Thanks, Mom and Dad. The last thing I want to say on this topic was I got to see Oprah's doing her 2020 Vision tour. I don't know if you guys know that. She's doing that right now. She was in Charlotte last 2 weekends ago. That's where I live. And I got to see her. It was an amazing event. It was so good. And in every city, she's having different hosts, different people come in. Not hosts, speakers that she's interviewing. And in Charlotte, she brought in Amy Schumer, and I was like, oh, man, I'm kind of bummed because like Tina Fey is on this tour, Michelle Obama, The Rock. Like, I'm like, not Amy Schumer. Like, I'm kind of bummed. But she ended up being really funny. And learned a lot of lessons from her. She said, there's a lot of things I've done in the past that I learned from that I wouldn't do now because I know that it crossed the line or I hurt someone's feelings. And she also shared, and I love this, I wrote it down because I didn't want to say it wrong, you have to do bad to do better. And she said this as she was talking about all of the experiences and different stand-ups she's done. She's like, guys, I've failed every way you could possibly fail doing stand-up. I've gotten stuff thrown at me. I've forgotten what to say. I've completely bombed, where everyone is as silent as you guys are, but just trying to make people laugh, right? Like, that is potentially terrifying. So she's like, now I just have no fear, because I've done it all. And it's all happened to me, and I'm still here. I'm still standing. I didn't die. And that's the important thing. Like, when you're having these new experiences, like, ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? A lot of times we build this up in our brains that there's these, these huge unsurmountable things we can't do, or we're so scared and we get too nervous to make a move or a change. But it's really all up here. And the difference between where you are and where you want to be or what you want to do is literally a step. Most often. So next, problem solving. This is a mindset. So it comes to you when any challenge or struggle comes up, right? And you get to decide. You get to decide, are you going to see this maze or this obstacle or this wall as an obstacle, or are you going to see it as an opportunity? Are you going to see it as a challenge, something that you can work on and get better at? I think it's really all about your mindset. You have the ability to, it's just whether or not you want to do it. And I think there's 3 ways that you can respond to a challenge or an obstacle. On the left, we have the rocking chair. There's a quote that goes, worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere, right? Like, nothing's changing. You're just spinning in your head. There's nothing getting better. The next thing is, you can throw it out. So like if an idea or a problem or, a friend says something to you, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do something with it. You can literally just throw it out. Not everything needs to be dealt with or analyzed or solved. Like, you can actually, this is a productive thing. The rocking chair, not productive. Throwing an idea out, that is productive. But you don't have to take it in and let it take up your mind space and your energy. You only have so much time and energy in your life, so spend it on the things that matter. And when one of those things comes along that matters, that's the third picture, running, taking action. So if there is something that you care about or that you want to work on or do, that's when you take action, that's when you go after it. And here's some steps to problem solving, just for those of you who might feel like you're stuck in inaction or you're not sure what to do. So identify the problem, right? There's always a problem. What is like the issue? Even if it's a conflict with your friends, what is the problem? Get to the root of the problem. This is really interesting because a lot of people they see this problem over here and they're like, oh, I gotta go fix that. And then they're like, Band-Aid, Band-Aid, Band-Aid. And you're like, dude, your arm is broken. Like, you need more than a Band-Aid. So make sure you're getting to the root of the problem. One way you can do this is ask why 5 times, or ask how come or how. You can just keep asking that question until you get to the root of it. I actually have a funny story about this. Earlier this week, I was getting treated by my physical therapist, and I'm like, oh man, there's just this, there's something going on in my foot, I don't know what it is. And he's like, okay, let's do some things. And I'm thinking like, I'm like icing it, I'm like taking care of it. And he's like, okay, and he looks at my back, and we do some stretches, and he does a couple of things. He's like, yeah, so it's a nerve in your back. And we worked through a couple more things, and then I'm like, no, yeah, that feels better. That feels better. So it wasn't what I thought it was, right? It was my back. It wasn't my actual foot. It was actually a nerve, not anything related to my actual musculoskeletal system. Google it. I'm not kidding. Guys, when there's a problem, there's so much information out there available to you. Google it. I mean, this is just like the simplest. There's so many times where I'm spending 30 minutes trying to figure something out. I'm like, why am I doing this? The answer is online, on the World Wide Web. Brainstorm. Brainstorm some options. Write down all the possible ways that this could be solved, or this something sucks. Like, just get it out of your head. Collaborate, bring other people in, especially if you're trying something new or you're trying to solve a problem. Bringing other people together, talking about your ideas. Don't be attached to the original idea you have. There's so many ideas I've had where I'm like, this is awesome. Then I talk to someone about it, and they're like, oh, well, what about this or that? And I'm like, that's a great point. I'm so glad you told me that. And then once you collaborate, decide on a solution. If you're in a group, obviously, decide together. If it's something you can decide on your own, go for it. And then you have to implement, right? Like, you have to take the action. That's the action piece. And make sure you know, and this is another talk for another day, but about setting up your goals, how to go after them, how to set up a plan, how to reverse engineer the process. Okay, so your superpower. Who wants to find out what your superpower is? Okay, guys, raise your hand. Everyone wants to know what your superpower is. Okay, I want you to take your right hand. I want you to put it out in front of you. Everyone, put it out in front of you like this. Everyone, come on. All right, yeah, I'm proud of you guys, thanks. Okay, now, I want you to point to your head. I want you to point to your heart. And I want you to point to your gut. That is your superpower. You are your own superpower. I know that sounds really silly, but this is serious. So your head, your heart, and your gut, right? Your brain has so much going on in it. You have, unlimited capacity for information. The human brain is amazing. Your heart, oh my gosh, guys, so much of what is beautiful and frustrating about the human experience is our heart. But so much, that's where your passion comes from, right? Like, there's so much valuable information in your heart. And then your gut. I don't know if you know this, but there are billions, potentially trillions, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know this, but trillions of microbiomes in your gut. Like, there's literally more biomes in your gut than there are cells in your body, which is kind of crazy. That gut instinct, that's a real thing. Like, science has proven this. So, between your head, your heart, and your gut, that is your superpower. And no one has those 3 things, not even one thing, just the way yours is. And then you have this combination of 3 things, right, that make you so special and unique and unconquerable if you buy in to those superpowers, like if you actually believe it. I love kids because they're like, whatever, like, I'm gonna go out and fail, I'm gonna keep walking around here, look at me, I'm walking. Or they put their superhero masks on and their outfits on. And there's actually a study, and I meant to look this up, what university or institution did this, but they took kids, they put them in a room, and they did kids that, they did a control where they were just themselves, and then they put kids in their favorite superhero uniforms. And there was actually a third group that was in the middle. They said, just pretend you're your favorite superhero. And they gave them a puzzle to solve. They gave them a bunch of keys and a lock, and they were like, okay, figure out which key fits in the lock. Actually, none of the keys fit in the lock, which I just think is cruel, but it was to prove a point. So the kids who were just given no instruction and were themselves, they gave up the quickest. The kids who were pretending they were their favorite superhero, they lasted a little bit longer. The kids who were actually dressed up in costume as their favorite superhero, they lasted the longest. Obviously, they couldn't solve it because it could not be solved. But I think that's just so interesting, right? Like, even if you don't believe in yourself now, think about your best qualities. Think about the people that you admire. And then you can create this persona for yourself that you step into, right? Who do you want to show up as? And if you don't feel like you're that person just yet, that's okay. But if you have this persona that you step into and say, hey, I'm going to step into this persona right now. How would this person act? You can do that. And you can even have, I've heard people, and I have friends that do this, that talk about triggers. So they'll wear like a ring or a necklace, or maybe it's like their favorite pair of shoes. They'll have triggers that remind them, this is my superpower, this is this persona that I want to step into. It's really powerful, guys. The mind has this amazing ability that we can do so many things, but we also limit ourselves in so many ways. I love this. The other part about this that I love is that people are going to judge you no matter what. So do what you want and be who you want, because this is just so true. It doesn't matter if you're the perfect person or you do all the right things or you're like the trendiest and you dress in all the cool clothes. People are still going to be like, oh, they're trying so hard. God, Sarah, she's the worst. Hope no one's in here named Sarah. But I'm serious. Like, that's just how people are. I hope they stop being like that. Those people, whoever they are, because it is the most amazing thing to me is when every person is showing up as themselves. And here's the other thing. You think it's easier, and I thought this too, because I did this for years, and it took me a long time to figure it out and to stop doing it. But you think it's easier to pretend, to fit in, to do the things, right? To wear the clothes, to act like other people are acting. And hopefully you guys know this now. You're probably way smarter than I am. I didn't know this in college, but it's not. It takes so much effort to try to do that and try to fit in. And then when you don't, it hurts even more, right? But if you just show up as you and people don't like you, you're like, whatever, this is me. But in fact, I don't think that will happen, because what I've found is that when you do show up as you, and when I see people show up as themselves, people are drawn to them. You like want to be around that person because you're like, why? Like, man, like there's just something about them, right? Like they have this confidence about them, but it's not a cocky way. They just are like, oh, this is kind of who I am. I did it with my mom today. She's probably gonna be mad that I said this, but she was like, wear the other pants. And I was like, Mom, I like these pants, and I feel great in these pants, so I'm gonna wear these pants. I love my mom, she's great. But so yeah, all the things about you, whether you think it's weird or different or strange, it doesn't matter. You're so weird, don't change. Like, that's your superpower. Being you is your superpower. Okay. Networking, the word that I feel like is weird, but I'm still using it. Guys, developing a network. Let me go back to that last point for a bit. So I mentioned when you start to show up as you, your people are going to start to come to you. They're just drawn to you. It's an energetic thing. And that is how you're going to start to build your network. And the more authentically that you show up and are that you, the better and the easier it's going to be for you to network. So growing your network is one of the most important things that you can do. It is, when I was in school, I think I was doing, I transferred here actually. And when I transferred, I started doing history club with Jeff. That's how we went on all those cool trips. I was doing swimming and water polo. I was on the student athlete advisory committee. It's called SAC. It's just the worst name, the NCAA. God. and I had an internship towards the end of my career. So I was doing all these things, having all these experiences. I think I was in a business fraternity too, I might have forgot that. But I was always making new connections and had all these different groups of people. And that's still how my life is now. Like, I have all these people all over the country that I'm friends with. And not just friends with, but have like a real connection with. So networking isn't coming up to someone and be like, hey, I'm Lo, what's your name? Liv? Love it. It's not like, hey, great to meet you, and then walking away. That's not networking. Networking is sitting down, having a conversation, getting to know Liv, getting to know what's Liv into, what is she like. Sorry, I don't want to embarrass you, I'll move on. But that is real networking. So like asking questions about people, finding out what they're interested in, right? It's not just the quick handshake and going to an event and then walking away and then going to stand with your friends, because that doesn't do anything. That doesn't get you out of your bubble. It's about making real connection. And so I want to talk about how to build relationships. And on this networking point, before we talk about that, this will help you in your career, because you're going to see different people and what they're doing, and they're learning and they're growing, and then they're gonna be your champion for you once you kind of start to figure out what you want to do. I have so many people that literally say, hey, if there's anything I can do to help you, and I do this for people too, if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. Whether it's a recommendation, whether I can connect you to someone that I know that someone knows. I know so many people who have gotten jobs, not from applying, but from word of mouth, from their network. That is why it's so valuable. There's a quote that says, your network is your net worth. So how powerful is your network? Here's how to build relationships. Say hi. Easy, that's the easy part. Ask questions. Really care about that other person. I am a marketing director and a training director and sales coach at my organization, and this is the biggest thing. It's like, if you're a salesperson, no one cares what you have to sell unless you show that you care about them. People don't care unless you care about them, usually. Then add value, right? Like, okay, what are you bringing to the conversation, right? What are you guys going to talk about? Like, are you going to have an interesting conversation? Are you going to go do some fitness thing together? Add value. Share experiences, right? So one thing that's really interesting is I love social media. You can do all three of the first things on social media with someone, right? You can meet new people, but you can't share things in real life with someone. So it's about that real experience, right? Like getting next to the person, doing something, and having that memory. You're creating memories. And then repeat, and you just keep doing it. And you don't have to do this, like it could be with your closest friends, you're gonna do this every week. With other people, you're gonna do it every month. With other people, you might do it once a year. But the point is that you are building these relationships, and they become, it just becomes a habit. But it is, again, not just the, hi, how are you, okay, bye. And it's meeting new people all the time. So I have a challenge for you later. Okay. This one, I just want to talk about this real quick. This is the cheesiest picture I could find. But jealousy. No one else's success is going to prevent you from succeeding. So if you have a friend or a roommate or anyone, it doesn't matter what they're doing, it doesn't matter what anyone else in your major was doing, because I think one of the concerns was, I fear I'm behind compared to others in my situation, which is so valid. But it doesn't matter. You're on your own path. You're creating your own journey. Your journey doesn't look like anyone else's. So celebrate this person. Let them inspire you. Let them motivate you. But there's no reason to be jealous. It has the opposite effect. It takes you out of your lane. It takes you out of your game. I don't know if you guys remember. I think I just remember this because I'm a swimmer. But when Michael Phelps was competing in the Olympics, maybe 2008, and he was swimming butterfly, right? And he's coming into the wall, and then the guy next to him was literally just looking at him, and that guy lost. Like, focus on your stuff. Gratitude. Oh, before we move on this one, so to develop a network and make you a little bit uncomfortable, I would like, we're gonna 30 seconds, I want you to shake hands with someone you do not know, and this is only the first step, is just say hi, exchange names, and just say it's great to meet you. So just shake hands right now. We're gonna do this in real life. Shake hands with someone you don't know. You know it. Julie, my son is meeting me. I actually have a okay, and remember their name. Remember their name. You said Julie, right? Okay. All right, gratitude. Oh, it's my favorite topic. Gosh, nothing says gratitude to me like a coffee cup with a heart in it. It was legitimately difficult to find an image to represent this, so this is what you're getting. But I do think this is a great reminder because a lot of people start their day with coffee, right? But how many people are like grabbing their coffee and they're like, all right, I'm out the door. And then I usually spill something on myself because that's what I do. But I love that I don't think most baristas do this with this in mind, but I kind of love that they took the time to put the heart, right? Like what if we all had this moment in the morning where we took time to reflect with our coffee, with ourselves, not with our phone, and just say, wow, I'm so grateful for this cup of coffee that I could have today, for the people in my life, for the night of sleep that I got last night. I usually thank myself for that, or for the lack of sleep that I got, but for the good hours. Or for, sunshine. The fact that I get to be outside. I know here you guys don't have as much as I do, I'm sorry. But it's, there's other great things about Erie. Ice is a great thing too. But gratitude is so important. And so your daily practice of gratitude, I don't care if it's in the morning, if it's at night, if you find yourself in a negative situation, I am telling you that gratitude will pull you out of it. It will. Focusing on what's negative is just going to keep you stuck in that space, right? In the rocking chair. I don't want to be in the rocking chair. I definitely don't want to be in the rocking chair. So gratitude, thinking about what you're grateful for, not only what you have in your life, but what you don't have, what you want to manifest. This is another word that really gets on my nerves because everyone's like, go manifest that. There's another word on the end of that, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. It's like with the it at the end, with the sh in the beginning. And people do that hashtag, and the manifest word just gets me, because you can't manifest things, like you have to work for them. You can manifest things, but you have to work for them as well. So, gratitude is a really cool way to manifest, right? To be grateful for things that you have, but for things that you don't have yet. And there is actually science proven by, I saw studies by Harvard and by Berkeley, many other universities and institutions, that doing this practice of gratitude, being grateful for things that you don't have yet, can energetically shift them towards you. And if you believe that it can happen and that you have it in your life, you are going to actually work to make it happen. So then the choices you make start to align with the things that you want. It's kind of weird, but it makes sense. Like, if I say, okay, I want to go run a marathon, but then I don't get off the couch and train, it's not going to happen. But if I see in my mind, okay, I want to run a marathon, and I don't even know what a good marathon time is, but I want to run a marathon in under 4 hours, and I see this and I manifest this happening over and over and over. Well, my brain is now thinking about hitting this marathon time, and so I'm going to be like, well, I have to go run because I need to go hit that time. And my brain's thinking about running, so my body's going to be like, yeah, let's go for a run right now, rather than not even focusing on the end goal, and you're focused on other things, right? We're over in this space. We're not in the action space. So that's how gratitude can shift you. It improves just gratitude on its own. It improves your physical and mental health. Again, these are things that have been proven by renowned universities and research institutions. with consistently, it increases your happiness. I'll tell you a quick story. It was after I graduated here, I was working at GE Transportation, and I was just in a funk. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I just know I'm not happy. And I through friends, I ended up working with a life coach here in town who's amazing. And I can give you her name after if you're interested in. Who happened to be married to my yoga instructor, which I thought was hilarious. I'm like, can I get a family discount option? But that completely started to shift my mentality, but not just that. I also got this book called The 5-Minute Journal. And this is still available today. And I used it every single day. It was a couple minutes in the morning, a couple minutes at night. And it was just list a couple things you're grateful for at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, some things you want to do, some things you could improve on, and maybe like a month or two into that practice, I remember, and I was still working through a lot of stuff with my coach, and she was also a therapist, so I was just like processing a lot of stuff. I was like, man, I am so happy. This is crazy. Like, what the heck is going on? Like, there's no reason for it. I was still in the same shitty job that I hated. I said the S word, I'm sorry. I was still in the same job that I hated. Really nothing had changed. Like, I was in a relationship, that didn't change. There were like no other variables other than working with my coach and doing this journal. And I was like, this is nuts, like it's gotta be the journal. And this is the book that I've gifted and referred to so many people. It's called The 5-Minute Journal. It's like $10 or something. I think you can get it on Amazon. And if you can't, like, you don't need it. It's just 3 things in the morning you're grateful for, 3 things you'd like to do today, 2 I am statements, so like I am powerful, or I am focused, or I am whatever you need to work on or bring into your life that day. And then at the end of the day, it's just another little reflection. Next, gratitude helps you appreciate what you have, right? What is around you right now. What you have in your life is everything. Not the things, but the people, the experiences, the moments. It's a way to reflect. And then again, as I mentioned, it helps you attract what you want. Okay, so these were the topics today. Reframing failure, as many experiences as possible, right? Problem solving, your superpower is you. Networking, building a real network, and gratitude. And I want to give you, so before we get there, okay. So some of you have been taking notes. I want you to think about the 1 to 2 things that landed with you the most from anything that I said, or maybe a daydream that you had that you're like, ooh, that was a good thought. It doesn't have to come from me. It's whatever's happening for you up here. So think about the 1 to 2 things you found most impactful to you in the situation that you're in. And I want you to think of a plan on how you're going to incorporate them into your life, how you're going to change, because we can intake information all day, right? Like, you can watch all the TED Talks you want, you can go to all your classes, you can get straight A's, you can do all the things, but at the end of the day, if you're not making changes in your behavior, and your attitude, and your mindset, none of that matters. You can listen to a million podcasts, you can listen to I don't even know how many hours of podcasts Joe Rogan has right now, but you can listen to all of them, and it doesn't matter. Until you actually decide how you're going to apply that information to your life, it does not matter. So you've got to incorporate it into your life and figure out, again, like the 1 to 2 things that stuck with you that you want to work on, and then how you're going to incorporate them. And then I'm gonna give you some suggested actions from these that you can take with you. So reframing failure, I want you to try something new in the next 2 weeks. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm gonna go to the frat party this weekend, it's gonna be great. No, that's not new, you've done that. If you haven't done it, do it, it's cool. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about new experiences that are gonna broaden your mind, or you're having a great conversation with someone, right? Ask someone out to lunch. Not someone you're interested in, like romantically, just like someone you think is interesting. Just, hey, can we grab lunch or coffee? Problem solving. Change I have to I get to. This is also a piece in gratitude. Changing I have to I get to is so powerful, because when you have the mindset of I have to do this, like I have to come to this talk right now, you're giving your power away. No one is making you do anything for the most part. It is all up to you. So I get to do that. You claim that power, that superpower in you. I get to do this. And if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Right? There's things, look, let me reframe. There's things that I want to be careful, because everything, it could be taken as a double-edged sword. There's things that we don't want to do, but we know they're good for us, right? Like, I had to run this morning. I did not want to run this morning. I woke up, I was so tired. I'm like, okay, like trying to figure out how to walk again. But I made myself do it anyway. So it's like, okay, I didn't necessarily want to do it, but I reframed and I was like, I get to do this, and I know doing this is going to make me a better person for the rest of the day, and it's going to make me better to achieve my goals. So that is just the clarification I wanted to provide. Your superpower. Find a reminder trigger or a powerful stance. I think is it Amy Cuddy who's power posing? Is anyone familiar with this? Is it Amy Cuddy? I don't know. I can't remember if it's Amy Cuddy. Anyway, she talks about like power posing. Like before you have a big presentation or anything, you can literally power pose. And then she does this one. I think she does, I don't know, something else. Anything powerful, you can do that. That's a TED Talk you can look up. Okay, networking. If you don't have an internship, I'm gonna hunt you down and make you get an internship. I'm serious. I sound like a parent right now. I'm definitely not a parent. And I want you to shadow, this is a challenge, shadow 3 people this semester. It could be just following someone around for a couple hours. I guarantee if you reach out to any professional and say, I'm interested in this, they will be happy to let you shadow them. And then gratitude. Write down one thing. If you don't do anything else, please do this. Write down one thing you're grateful for every day for the next 30 days. I promise you're going to see a tangible impact on your life just by this one thing. I promise. Okay, so the person that you shook hands with before you leave here, they're going to be your accountability buddy. So you're going to decide like 1 to 2 things that you're going to do, right? You can say you're going to do all of them. That might be aggressive, but 1 to 2 things that you want to do. And you're going to check in with your accountability buddy once a week. You guys are going to share, hey, these are my things. This is how I'm doing. Because I want it to be real, right? None of this matters, again, unless you're taking action, unless you're doing something about it. And I don't care what you do. It doesn't even have to be, like there's times I've gone to talks before, and I'm like, yeah, that was cool, but like I've heard a lot of this stuff before, but I have another idea in it, and I'm like, this is what I need to work on. So that could happen for you. Whatever it is, I want you to at least have one thing that you are going to take away out of this room and that you're going to incorporate into your life, do differently, show up differently, try something different. So that's it. These are the 5 topics: reframing failure, problem solving, your superpower, networking, gratitude. I think if we have a couple minutes, Stacey, can we open it to questions if anyone has any?
Yeah. Mike, anyone got questions?
Yes.
What do you do for a living now? Like, where do you work? How did you get to? Just a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, sure. I get really excited about talking about things that matter and move you guys forward, but I'm happy to talk about. So that's why I didn't do a proper intro. So my background, I graduated from Gannon History and International Business degree. I started working at GE Transportation. From there, I moved to Denver, was still working with them, but it was just a voluntary move. I just wanted to move. That was a huge shifting point in my life. That first risk, we can talk about reframing risk as well, if the next time I'm back. But that risk was a kind of a catapulting moment for me. And then I got recruited. I started working with guys in biotech. Hello, history and international business. Like, do you think I know anything about biotech? No. But anyway, did that, was part of a startup, worked with those guys for a couple years, and we started 3 companies together. So that was incredible. I was part of like the core, there was like 4 or 5 of us. I was part of that core team. And then I started my own consulting company, and I started consulting with the company that I work with today as a marketing and training director, Monate Global. It's a global health and beauty brand. So yeah, it's exciting, and I get to work with salespeople. We have salespeople all over the world, and I get to help them understand how to build their businesses, how to become entrepreneurs, how to talk to people, how to do a lot of the things that we talked about today. It's hardly any different, but common themes always.
I have a question.
Yes.
How did, like, once you started, you like mentioned that you had like a life coach.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how did you get to the point where like you saw your life and like you knew that you needed that help, or like, and then once you got that help, like how did you see like the physical manifestations of like what you were working on?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good question. Can everyone hear that? You guys hear that? I guess this room is not that big. That's an excellent question, because we, in my family, like none of us, like we weren't really like into therapy or anything. My parents are pretty like just hardworking, by the book individuals. So like when I was like life coach, they're like, what? But they accepted it later, it's fine. So I was just like, I knew something was wrong, and I'm a fairly happy person, right?
Yeah.
And I just knew, I'm like, this is not who I want to be or who I want to show up as. And if this is life, like I just won't accept this. And I didn't know what to do. And I talked to a friend who I admired. She's a couple years older than me, and she was going through some career transitions. She had worked with this coach and was like, listen, she's amazing. She didn't even necessarily say like, go talk to her, but I knew her experience was so profound. So I was just like, hey, like, did you like that? She's like, oh, dude, like, it was amazing. She's helping me. She moved out to LA. She's been in LA for over 10 years now. My friend, not the coach. And then, so I just worked, I was like, whatever, I'm gonna go do a free session with her, right? There's no risk, it's a free session, it's the first time I met her. Immediately I was like, yes, you're my people, I need to be with you, help me. And what I realized in that is I was like, I kept going to her and I'm like, okay, like this is what we're gonna talk about today, help me, fix me. But she could only like help reframe to me. I had to do the actual work. So worked through that for almost like a year. I was going every week or so. And then I was going every other after that. But worked on that piece of it, and then started to pull together things like, okay, I had more experiences, right? I started doing professional development stuff. And it was like, oh, well, this is interesting to me, so I'm gonna do this. And so I didn't know, like I didn't sit that down. I wish I could have sat down and wrote 10 years ago, like I want to be where I am today. But I had no idea. I just knew like the things that were interesting to me and that I wanted to keep chasing. Does that make sense? And does that answer your full question also? Okay, cool. It's a process, right? You just have to keep uncovering, keep learning. Like even now, I kind of know what I'm going to focus on for the next few years, but guys, 5 years ago was a long time. But think about yourself 5 years ago. How much you've changed, how much you've grown, this time of your life especially. But even for me 5 years ago, where was I living? Denver maybe? Maybe Pittsburgh? I don't know. I don't know. But that's the thing, is like keep having more experiences. If there are things you're excited about, chase those and incorporate them into your life as much as you can. Any other questions? Yes.
Who did you set your goal to be like? Like say Oprah, Ellen, anybody?
Oh, that's my uncle. That's a great question, Uncle Dave. It's funny. I don't really think, originally, back then, I had never really had anyone, like people have athletes they idolize. I didn't really have anyone. I just kind of I've always done this. I took what I've seen a lot of great people do, including you, and other people in this room. But yeah, thank you. I've taken what I've seen great people do and kind of like put them together, right? So I've not had any specific one mentor, but more recently, I've definitely looked at what Oprah has done, what Mel Robbins, she's a speaker, what she's done, Tony Robbins, no relation, Gary Vaynerchuk. I look at these people who are making an impact And that is kind of how I'm modeling. And one of the things, I was talking to someone, I was like, you know, and this is a real goal, like I want to create these huge systems and programs for people to help people. And I was like, yeah, I want to be like Oprah, but not Oprah, like my version. And I've seen Oprah speak twice now. She's amazing. And she said, you know, when I started my career, I wanted to be just like Diane Sawyer. So everything I did, like from the way I carried myself, to the way I spoke, to the way I acted, I was like the black Diane Sawyer. And then she said one time she went on air for an interview, and she didn't prepare as much as she normally does, and she messed up. And she never messed up. And then she just kind of had like a ooh, whatever moment. And the reaction that she got from that interview was better than any other interview she'd ever had. And in that moment, she had this light bulb that went off that was like, the way that you show up, right, is your superpower. It's not trying to be like anyone else, trying to fake it and force yourself into being something that you're not. And you can take things from them, but I thought that story was so incredible, because here's Oprah, who was at that time very successful, still trying to be Black Diane Sawyer. And she's like, it didn't work. And then when I leaned into my true self, that's when everything switched. Excellent.